Hey guys, welcome to CMAN710's Crypt of Horror, where I talk all of the new stuff with me, CMAN710. So I'd like to start my video out today giving a big shout out to Radio Silence. I think it's really cool how recently, I don't know if anyone's seen the tweet, Matt actually reached out to me when I messaged him, thanking him for his support on me kind of like dedicating the release of Scream 5 to him and Tyler and their team, and he said he thanked me for supporting them, and basically confirmed to me that these guys are actually like backing it a little bit, which is really cool. I never thought I'd see the day that someone from the Scream team actually reached out to me like that. I was starstruck. I don't even know how to describe it. To have their support for that is really cool. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, if he's watching, honestly, bar and beyond, that's the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. My whole team and I were freaking out. Well, anyways, I thought that's a great way to introduce this video, actually, because I'm going to be deep diving into Scream 5. That is my Scream 5, not the Scream 2022, which comes out next week, which I'm still dying to see. I think everybody is. But just before we get started, I'd like to make clear this is going to be a very heavy spoiler video. I'm going to be talking about everything in my script, from the killers to the survivors to plot points and little bits of information that I didn't really reveal yet. So if you haven't read it yet, this is your chance to click the link below and read it right now. Then come back and join us, because I'm not going to filter any spoilers or anything like that. It's going to be all no holds barred from the first sentence I start. I will have no spoilers for the real movie, Scream 2022, I promise that. But if you have not read Scream 5, please click the link below and then come back. Alright, still with me? Perfect. So, I think I kind of wanted to do this video mostly because I had started a Word document on it, and it just became super long before I even got to page 3. So, I kind of just felt like, it was really not a good idea to do this as a Word document, but to use it to promote my YouTube channel. Because, hey, I always need more content, and honestly, because the Scream 2022 theory video I was trying to do didn't work out very well. So, if you're here, I'm really excited to talk about this. I think this is the first time I've talked in depth about spoilers since I started writing. Okay, so I'm going to start with the killers. Everybody sort of knows this, but I've gone through 10 killers in this draft. I think this is the most I've ever done in a Scream script, and I think it speaks to a lot of Matt and Tyler's work about how I've suspected pretty much everybody during the production process. I think the only two that were not made killers were Tara and Mindy, and that's because I already had locked them down story-wise pretty firmly when I first started the draft. But actually, interestingly enough, you know who the first two killers were? Sam and Richie. I thought it was kind of hella suspicious that Sam disappeared for years and never came back, and I know a lot of people think, well, maybe it has something to do with her past in Woodsboro, right? Well, my real thought was, when reading the script sides, was about the abusive father that they have. I was thinking, that's interesting. Doesn't that give Sam motive? So, I kind of went around and played with the idea that Sam was sent to a mental institution, and she really kind of cracked. And with Richie, I kind of did the exact same thing. They both met at the mental institution in the original draft, actually. Richie was the brother of Frances. Back then, she was named Jessie. As a lot of you know, I went by the original names. I'm going to use the current names to kind of not like get confusing after a while, because if I keep calling Sam Sarah and Tara Teresa and so on and so forth, I'm just gonna lose you guys, right? So, but basically, the idea was they had come together to kind of get back at Tara, and that's where that started. Pretty early into writing Scream 5, I really fell in love with the character of Richie. And I decided to take him out, even though I had written a whole draft by the time I had made that decision, and he had been the killer. I was like, I rewrote the whole thing on the fly. I replaced him with lots and lots of different killers. At one point, Liv had faked her death. Chad had faked his death. let's see here. I think that Vince was the killer at one point, too. Vince, I really didn't like making him the killer. I really liked writing his character a lot. I thought it was fun to play a Gale that wasn't really totally Gale. He was kind of a nerd, but, I kind of put a little of myself into that character. Not the creepy vibes, promise. But, yeah, I thought it was really cool. But yeah, I think that pretty much everybody except for the OG3, Mindy and Tara, were involved at one point. Even Judy was involved at one point. And I'd done that before, so I kind of squashed that right away. But yeah, it was interesting. The other interesting thing that was that Jill Roberts was involved at one point too. I didn't really talk about this that much because I was kind of trying to make it a secret for a while, when I was first drafting out Scream 5, the idea was going to be that it was going to be a direct sequel to Scream 4, and it wasn't going to be revealed until the halfway mark, when all the murders started happening, and in this draft, Sydney was technically not going to be in it until about page 50. Tara was still living with Dewey and Gale, like in the first draft, for some of the people that read the test drafts. She ended up being incarcerated in a mental institution that would have been the same mental institution that Sam and Richie were in prior to the events of the film. So Sam was sort of taking orders from Jill, was sort of going to be the idea. Jill had basically warped her mind and was creating her sequel trilogy, was going to be the idea. And Kirby was going to come back too. It was going to be like, they were all going to be there. It was just not going to be revealed until you read the script itself. It was going to be really kind of cool. It was got 3 generations of Final Girls, and it was going to lead directly into a Scream 6, which, I kind of didn't fib that the 3 and 5 started off as a one-off, but I kind of always knew I kind of wanted a sequel. I just didn't know what angle I was taking it with, and that one didn't work out, obviously. It became convoluted. It was supposed to kind of sort of combine my original idea for Scream 5 that I had prior to the production starting, and the ideas of the new one, and it just ended up not working. I guess the single point of it was it just didn't work. It kind of felt like I was just mishmashing too many ideas together. Kirby ended up surviving into Scream 6. Jill, I'm sorry, she's dead. I know there's a lot of Jill fans out there. I'm a huge Jill fan too, but I really don't see a future for her in this. She's dead as a doornail, as the script confirms. But it was kind of cool to play with that for a little bit, and to play with the idea of having a big surprise twist. There's always a surprise twist in one of my scripts, but to have it be something that monumental like that, it would be like, wait a minute, you mean Jill's alive and she's doing all this? It was kind of fun. It was a fun thought. I'm glad I didn't do it, but what can I say? There's nothing wrong with playing with different ideas. That's how we get to the good ones. Let's see here. The survivors were kind of convoluted too for a while. It was originally going to be Sydney, Gale, Dewey, and I want to clarify right now. Sydney, Gale, and Dewey always survived every draft of the script. I always knew I wanted to bring them into a sequel if that ever happened. I think it was a little early, in my opinion, to kill them, hit them off, and it was like, I thought it would be kind of cool if they had kept them alive for the middle chapter of a trilogy, kind of. So they got their sequel trilogy in the end, and then let them ride off into the sunset. I don't know if that's what Matt and Tyler are planning, but that'd be kind of cool to me. So sure, I was like, why not? Let them live. The survivors were, at any given time, it was Tara, Mindy, and 2 other people. Typically, it was Richie, because Richie was the main villain. After a while, after I decided for a bit that Sam was just not working out, then it was Wes at one point, Vince at one point, and finally it kind of just sort of boiled down to who had the best characterization, and I really liked Richie. That's kind of the reason why I took him off the killer list too, to be honest, because, think about it, Richie's kind of he was just such a good character. He was fun to write, he was a nice guy. I really wanted a boyfriend who was a nice guy for a change instead of being some shitty character, you know? And that's kind of how Richie was born, and I was like, he kind of got that Dewey vibe, and I liked it. So that was kind of cool. They were the survivors pretty much at the offset. Sam survived later after I decided I was writing Scream 6, as I said in a previous video. I was like, okay, so there's going to be 3 killers, and I need one of the killers to be alive for this to kind of come out, because the whole idea was to have that overarching, there's someone still out there going over everybody's head going into Scream 6. Yeah, that was kind of fun. It was fun to let Sam live. I've always threatened to have a killer survive one of my Scream scripts, and I finally did it. It only took 10 years? Yeah, that was kind of cool. I think the biggest question mark was the opening in this script. The opening in this script changed like 8 times. The first one was set with Liv and Chad, and they were always the opening kills, by the way. That was never a change. It was only changed in the last draft I did, which is the one that you've all read. Liv and Chad were going to be in Stu's house in the original draft. And I actually might still release this. If you guys are interested in reading some of these alternate openings, I have a bunch of them saved on my computer, so let me know in the comments below. Liv and Chad were going to be in Stu's house, and Liv is going to get a phone call and have to... It was sort of very much like the Scream first opening, but it was like bringing it... The opening is the ending kind of idea. It was really cool. I liked a lot of the dialogue I had in there. My problem was when I sent it out was that everyone thought it was a little too formulaic. The current one is kind of a little bit formulaic too, but this one was just sort of like, okay, you're retreading too much territory now. So I changed it to Woodsboro Video, Randy's Rentals in the final draft. And again, people were not that impressed with it. They thought that the dialogue was stilted. Liv and Chad just weren't connecting the way I wanted them to on paper. So I finally changed it in the last draft to what we got now, which is Liv and Deputy Farney, because I wanted a character, like I had a deputy character, but every time I wrote him in the first draft, I kind of just was not feeling Deputy Farney. So I was like, I'm regulating him to an opening kill, and I made Liv more of the star. That way it gave you more, someone to focus on, like you had Casey in the original, someone that like you could actually feel for, and like you don't have to focus on, oh, she's having dialogue after dialogue with somebody. It's like, come on, just get to the point. Ghostface calls her, shit goes down. I really liked the idea I had in that last draft, which was that she thinks it's a prank. The question came from the idea, well, what if somebody thought it was a prank and played along long enough for Ghostface to do some real damage? And doing that was sort of fun, because it made Liv a little bit more playful, just like Ghostface is a little playful. Her character really shined in that last draft for me. Like, I really found the voice of her character, and Chad's. And I think they work better apart, actually, so, hey, all's well that ends well, right? I think the other huge changes from draft to draft were that Mindy and Tara's relationship before the final draft was kind of left open-ended. I had always basically thought about Mindy and Tara either being in a relationship or Mindy and Richie sort of having a thing in Scream 6. When Jasmine Savoy Brown, who I have mad respect for, love that girl, told the world that Mindy was a representation of the queer community, which I thought was amazing. I was like, okay, it has to be Tara and Mindy, because I'm like, everyone was loving their chemistry together. Like, everybody's told me how much they love those two together, so I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go this route, and I'm totally fine with it, because I love the characters. It made it a lot more fun when I was writing the final draft, because I got to write all these little tidbits that weren't in the version I sent to the test readers. Like that whole moment on the couch with Mindy and Vince was different. He tried to come on to her, and it was a whole mess, instead of him finding out, well, sorry, Vince, but I kind of am into Tara. I really liked that better, find that better too. I think it adds a lot more depth to Mindy's character in the end, and I'm really proud of the work I did with that. I really can't thank Jasmine enough for being open about that and telling us that, because I think it really helped me in the long run to find character voices again. It was all about, as I was writing it, because I started this in 2020, and we didn't really know anything besides the character descriptions. So as more and more stuff came out, the more and more things I was like, oh, I could do really cool stuff with that there. And little things like that, like, again, Mindy being gay, or hey, Hicks's son, which he was technically a Meeks in the first draft, the very first draft. And Martha had a bigger role. Actually, let's go into Martha. That's a good spot. I hope not too many people were disappointed by the fact she was just a cameo. In the original draft, she wasn't. She was in a majority of the script, actually. She's made it to the final act and got killed by Sam and framed. The whole idea was that they were going to frame her and Wes, and they were going to be like, oh, they were stab fanatics, and Wes was a stab fanatic, and Martha was pissed about Randy. It was sort of like she was going after the new old generation. It just didn't kind of work out. I had a hard time finding Martha's voice, mostly. The more I wrote her, the more stilted her dialogue became. She didn't really have a lot to do. So I think... I'll confirm it now. Martha will be back. I do promise you. She won't be in 6, she'll be in 7. That's the first thing confirming out of Scream 7, so hey, exclusive there. I'm going to bring her back, and I'm going to explore her a little bit more. I'm trying to sort of iron out those details, which is again why it might take a little longer between 6 and 7, but I promise you I will be worth the wait. 7's probably my favorite story of the 3. Yeah, it was tough. You know, I had to make a lot of cuts. She was cut. Tara and Sam's mother was cut, because honestly, I had a character for her written too. I was gonna have Tara living with her, kind of like I assume she is in the new movie. But at the end of the day, it just was not working, and I really wanted the focus to be Tara and Sam's relationship. There was just too much time where Tara and Sam were honestly just not being involved. Honestly, yeah. They weren't involved enough with each other, and they needed to hammer that final twist that Sam is the killer home, that she's crazy. Gosh, there's so much I could talk about this script. I could literally sit here in front of this computer, and talk to you for the next 3 days. But I'm trying to get like the most interesting, juicy parts out of it, if that makes any sense. Let's see here. I think the biggest change in the scripts, though, were the finale. Give me one moment. I'm going to pause this video, and I will be back in a moment. Alright. Sorry about that. I knew this was going to be a long video, and I needed to take care of something, so... Where was I? Oh yeah, the finale. So, the big thing with the finale was that originally I wanted it to be set in Woodsboro Town Square and not on a house party. I kind of was trying to do something different. The original draft did end at Woodsboro Town Square, and the actual reveal took place at the fountain. And I thought, how cool would it be? The iconic fountain becomes the scene of the killers presenting themselves and having their whole shebang happen. That's around the time I decided that Amber was the killer, and I kind of made the whole point with her and Francis. And it didn't work a lot in the first draft, because again, the killer had changed so many times by this point. I'd gone through so many pairs of people, and Sam at that point hadn't even been the killer until I had finally decided, like at the last minute too, that I basically decided the killer's on the fly. I'm going to be honest with you, because I kept flip-flopping, so I was just like, decide on them. And I think that was the biggest mistake of draft 1, was that I sat there and I decided a lot of things at the last minute. And that's why at the end of the day I did do the second draft, because it was so much more focused. I knew exactly the story I was trying to tell by that point. And I'm really happy that I did that, because it was ultimately the best decision I made on this thing. But yeah, it was cool. It was a good finale. A lot of people thought it was too unfocused. I had a lot of people just running around randomly and different spots that just didn't have any setup. It wasn't as clear cut as the idea of them going to the old Prescott house. But I didn't want to go back to the Mocker house. I've done the Mocker house as a finale twice now. And again, I'm trying new things. I really wanted to step out of my comfort zone with a lot of this script and do new twists and new turns and new locations. I liked creating Westies, for example, the little diner that targets chase through, and I like developing a lot, actually. I liked developing everything from little places like the bowling alley that they work at to that, and I liked going back to the Prescott house and getting to play with it. Funny story with the Prescott house, actually, the day that I decided that was the finale location, I went to go see the Scream 25th anniversary screening, and I literally was taking mental note the whole time. Fun little story from production, I guess, with that, I got to spend that entire time, like, okay, the layout's this, and then there's little places here, and little things. If you'll notice throughout the script, I take my time and really try and pinpoint exact locations so you can really picture it, or at least I hope I did. I worked so hard. I think 90% of my time in the final draft was spent in the finale getting it right, because that was a struggle, and it's always kind of a struggle when you're writing the finale. If a writer will tell you that ending a script is so much harder than finishing it. I'm sorry, than starting it. Man, I'm just out of it. Man, there's a lot I could talk about, too, here. The finale changed multiple times still in the final draft. Originally, Richie didn't survive, and it was still Vince. I decided at the last minute that Richie and Vince needed to switch places, because, again, Richie was just the more interesting character. And when it came to Vince, it was sort of like, I didn't really want to go down the Vince Mindy route, and I knew that if I kept him alive, it was going to make things awkward between the three leads going into Scream 5 and Scream 6, and it just wasn't working for me. Too much drama. I think a lot of it was because it would feel a lot like doing Gale again. This is before, by the way, that I found out that Mindy was gay. But the thought was, okay, that's sort of an issue, because it's going to be the same thing as Scream 2. Mindy and Vince probably didn't work things out, and yeah. Oh, by the way, this is my dog Sideswipe. You guys will probably see him in a couple videos. He's my little love, and my little joy. He's probably looking for a little attention, but where was I? So yeah, Vince had to go. Richie had a lot more opportunities to do some interesting stuff, like after he finds out that Sam's the killer, what now? He's got to deal with the fallout of dating a psychopath, and it's interesting because we've never seen that from a male perspective. We've seen it from a female perspective with Sydney, but how does a guy deal with it? And I really enjoyed that. I'm enjoying doing that in Scream 6 immensely. I think he has a really cool character arc that I'm really excited for you guys to see. Yeah, that's a lot. There's so much to talk about in the finale. Originally, Gail wasn't in it. I originally left her at the house when she was attacked by the unknown third killer. That did not work well for me. I thought that it was too... Okay, it should be new generation focused, but in my opinion, if I'm going to use the original three, I had to try and incorporate them well. So I thought her coming to save the day again was kind of badass. Especially if it was just Sydney. Like, it was sort of like, hey, let's not do this again. But it was also like, I made that kind of the joke, is that every freaking time Sid was kind of her thinking about it, I guess, was kind of what I was picturing her mental state at that point. Yeah, that was kind of cool. I liked putting Gale back into it. She was a little bit more involved originally. Unfortunately, I think it ran too long. I think it was running at like 140 pages at that point, and I was just like, okay, this is getting a little too out of hand. I need to cut down and trim some stuff. There were a lot of little things like that too, and I got a lot of great notes from test readers. A lot of great people read from them. Beyond the Mask read from it. Craving Something Scary. A bunch of people from my message boards, which is the Writer's Haven. If anyone's interested in me sharing that too, feel free to ask for the link too. I will be happy to share. And a lot of them gave me a lot of great notes about the finale that I think just went above and beyond. Especially, and in the opening too. I couldn't have done the finale or the opening without them. I love you guys. Thank you. But yeah, all the great notes that they gave me just like really helped fine tune a lot of these things. A lot of good ideas that they had that I couldn't use here that I'm going to use in Scream 6 a little bit too. Yeah, it's a ballsy finale, I think, a little bit too, because I mean, I really tried to make Sam not too much like Jill. I think that thankfully they differentiate enough in motive. Plus the fact that I didn't try and make Sam the lead, which we'll talk about that too. Sam. So I know a lot of people probably were a little shocked that I made Tara the lead, especially after we find out that she was the opening, supposedly. Well, yeah. Exactly. I kind of was just like, I latched on more to Tara's description. Sam, I wasn't too sure about. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with her, other than I probably wanted to make her the killer. And I didn't want to retread Jill, so I'm like, okay, how's the best way to not retread Jill? Make sure that Tara is the focus. Sam, I also didn't want her to have a fame motive. That was my number one thing with this script, is that this script could have no motive related to the Stab franchise and fame. I've done that so many times. We've seen that in tons of different Scream fan scripts. It was time to try something new. And that's where I kind of got the idea that they were framing the Stab fanatics. Because I was like, well, why doesn't someone just frame one of them? If you want to get away with murder in Woodsboro, what better way to do it, right? Be like, yo, oh yeah, a Stab fanatic is going at it again, when they really don't give a shit. And that's Amber and Sam to a T in the new script. I loved that, actually. I loved going to play with that. Especially when I think a lot of people had a really interesting response. I told that to someone prior to finishing the script, and they were like, that's kind of awesome. I love the idea that they're doing that. And I really just... It was so much fun coming up with all these little twists and turns and little nuances and new things. I think that I'm going to continue a lot of that into the trilogy, and I love doing it because I just love going outside my comfort zone for once. I love trying these new things and opening it to new ideas. There's a lot to talk about that line still. I'm getting over almost 30 minutes. First long video, I guess. It's going to be a while, though, so hey, sit tight. I think the other biggest question is, what can I tell you guys about my decision to make a third killer? Like I said in the previous video, I really just... There were so many instances where when I was changing the killer, that I would keep, like, consistently be like, okay, who attacked this person, and that person, this person, and that person? So eventually, it became obvious that if I was going to change the killer so much, I was going to have to do 3 killers. I put the ending with Sam in the ambulance as a little tack on when I found out that I was going to do a trilogy, and prayed to God that anybody responded well to it. And they did, which is a great thing. But I also went back when I was writing the second draft and realized I have a lot of plot holes. Okay, so let's go fill in some of those plot holes. And now I think there are certain points in the script where you can know somebody else is doing it, because you'll notice that Amber and Sam can't be behind that, and that's what I think is fun. Because I almost wanted to see, I mean, like, how many of you guys actually figured out that there might be a third killer? Did anybody? Let me know. I'm really curious, because I know a lot of people were thrown off guard, but I really liked the little clues that I threw in there, like Gail's attack. Like, they were both at Sid's house. There were a couple other instances. A lot of, like, who sent the video out during school, because Sam was shocked. Clear that up, actually. The reason why she was shocked, obviously, was because they did that behind her back. She was supposed to get down to Woodsboro, but she wasn't in the know of when all this shit was going down. I feel like they kind of backdoored Sam a little bit. I think that's a lot of, like, why Amber's a little still shady to Sam, and I loved doing it. I really liked having killers that weren't necessarily like each other, because, I mean, a lot of killers in the Scream franchise actually have some sort of, like, little, like, mesh. Even if they're not friends, they will still get along, be copacetic. I really liked writing the team as sort of being out for their own personal gain, and that's something that Amber learns too late in the script. Oh yeah, I should clear that up too. Yes, the whole point of the Francis backstory was a red herring. I know some people got confused about that. I really didn't want to reveal quickly that the idea was that somebody was out for Tara based on what her dad did. I wanted to have that put throughout the script, which I did. But I wanted people to still focus on Francis and think, well, it's gotta be about Francis. And that's what makes it so much fun when Sam pulls the gun on Amber and is like, it was never about your freaking girlfriend, bitch. It was fun. It was like, kind of like a twist that I didn't even see coming. I hadn't even written that whole bit of it until the very end. I hadn't written any of that. The whole backstabbing of Sam and Amber was very natural, because I was originally going to let them sort of work together and copacetic and all that shit, but I was just like, that's not Sam and Amber. Sam and Amber are like two cats trying to work together and just being angry. They both have so much anger and rage that eventually one of them's got backstabbed the other, and of course it was Sam. Sam was always the kind of the mastermind and the brains of the operation. Amber was just out for revenge. Sam wanted the whole fucking town to feel how she felt. And that was a lot of fun. Again, new dynamics, new stories. There's gonna be a lot of that in Scream 6 and 7. Like, I mean, spades of it. Now that it's worked with this one, I wish I could tell you guys some of the great stuff that I have in store for you. But, stay tuned for that, I guess. I might put a trailer out next week for Scream 6, because I am pretty far into it. Just a very short teaser, just enough to give you guys like a little whet of the appetite, and in like a way kind of like celebrate the fact that Scream 2022 is coming out. Yeah, it's really cool, man. What else can I say? Oh, I guess I could talk a little bit about the third killer. I'm not giving any clues. I will say that there are many clues hidden in Scream 5 as to who the third killer is. Super subtle ones. If you really want the links in the description, try and find them. I'll be curious to see if anyone goes back now and reads and is like, wait, you've been hinting at who it is the whole time? I really have been, actually. I spend a lot of time throwing little sprinkles of who's pulling the strings, or who's just working with them. Is it a mastermind? Is it just a third killer? You'll never know until Scream 6. Yeah, that's the fun of it. So, yeah, actually, I think that's a good way to wrap it up, too. I wanted to take this last little bit to thank everybody that made the script happen. Again, Tyler, Matt, everybody at Radio Silence for inspiring me, all my test readers. Honestly, you all just, everybody that's read it, everybody that's followed it, or even just liked my tweets. If you haven't even read it yet, then great. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. I just really wanted to let you know that it's so appreciated by me. The outpouring of love. It's been a very hard year. Really, it was a very hard year for me last year. If you know me, you know a lot of the reasons, but it got me through a very hard time, and I really am thankful to all of you. I'm from just the guy who's seeing this for the first time, like, what the heck is this dude talking about? Who is this guy? And to the guy who's been following me forever, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really can't wait to show you what comes next, and I hope that it's a journey that we'll all enjoy together. Until next time, this has been CMAN710's Horror Crypt.